Welcome to a world where reality twists into nightmare, where shadows come to life, and secrets lurk in every dark corner. Tonight, we're diving into a chilling tale, a story that will make you question what's real and what's lurking just beyond your sight.
In the summer of 2008, Clara Evans took a job as a night clerk at a small, run-down motel on the outskirts of Amarillo, Texas. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and the place was usually quiet. That is, until a guest checked into room 6. The motel was nearly empty that night, save for a few truckers and a middle-aged man who arrived just before midnight. He was disheveled, pale, and avoided eye contact as he slid a cash payment across the counter. "Room 6, he muttered, his voice barely audible. Clara handed him the key and watched as he shuffled down the dimly lit corridor. Something about him made her uneasy, but she shrugged it off. People passing through motels weren't always in the best shape. An hour later, as Clara was going through some paperwork, she heard it, a muffled thump, like something heavy hitting the floor. Then another. It was coming from room 6. She hesitated, unsure whether to check on the man. Motel policy discouraged employees from disturbing guests unless absolutely necessary. Still, the noises continued, thumps, followed by the sound of something scraping across the floor. Summoning her courage, Clara grabbed her flashlight and headed down the hallway. The closer she got, the colder the air became, as if the summer heat had been sucked out of the building. She knocked on the door. "Sir, is everything okay in there?" No response. "Sir, I'm coming in to check on you." She unlocked the door and pushed it open. The room was freezing, her breath visible in the dim light. The furniture was overturned, the bedsheets torn, and the mirror on the wall was cracked. But the most unsettling part, the man was gone. Clara stepped inside, her flashlight trembling in her hand. "Hello?" she called out. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. She nudged it open, her heart pounding. The bathroom was empty, but the mirror above the sink was fogged over as if someone had just taken a hot shower. On the glass, a single word was written: "Help." She stumbled back into the main room, her gut screaming at her to leave. But as she turned to run, the door slammed shut on its own. The lock clicked, the room grew darker, and Clara heard it, a faint, wet sobbing, coming from the corner near the overturned chair. She shone her flashlight toward the sound, and her blood ran cold. There, crouched on the floor, was the man. His back was to her, his shoulders heaving as he sobbed. "Sir?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. The sobbing stopped. Slowly the man turned his head to look at her, but his face wasn't human. His features were distorted, his eyes sunken and black, his mouth stretching unnaturally wide in a grotesque grin. Clara screamed, fumbling with the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The figure rose, its body jerking unnaturally, and began to lurch toward her. In a blind panic, Clara grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and smashed it against the window. The glass shattered, and she scrambled out, cutting her arms and legs as she fell to the ground outside. She ran straight to the manager's office and called the police. By the time they arrived, room 6 was empty, completely untouched. No overturned furniture, no broken mirror, and no sign of the man. Shaken, Clara quit the job the next morning, but she couldn't shake the memory of what she had seen. Months later, she learned the motel had a grim history. In 1975, a man had killed his wife and child in room 6 before taking his own life. Guests and staff had long reported strange occurrences, but the room was still rented out because the motel needed the income. To this day, room 6 remains open, but locals warn travelers, if you stay there, You might not leave the same way you came. Some don't leave at all. In 2013, Lisa Ward was a rideshare driver in the quiet suburbs of Cincinnati. It was a job she took to pay bills, and most nights were uneventful. A few bar pickups, some late-night workers, and the occasional awkward conversation. But one night in early November, she picked up a fare that she would never forget. Lisa was parked at a gas station around 11:45 p.m. when a new ride request popped up. The destination was a rural address about 30 miles away, a small town she wasn't familiar with. She hesitated. Long, isolated drives always unsettled her, but accepted the ride. When she arrived at the pickup location, an old, dimly lit street corner, no one was there. She checked the app. The name on the request was simply M. A minute later, the back door opened, and a man slid into the seat. Lisa glanced in the rearview mirror, but the darkness obscured most of his features. He was wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over his face. "Hello?" Lisa said, trying to mask her discomfort. The man didn't respond. Lisa started driving, her unease growing. The address he entered led her down winding back roads, the streetlights disappearing as she ventured deeper into the countryside. "Cold night, huh?" Lisa tried again, her voice shaky. Silence. As the miles stretched on, she noticed something unsettling. In the mirror, she could see the faint glint of his eyes, staring, not at the road, not out the window, but at her. "Are you okay back there?" she asked, forcing a nervous smile. The man finally spoke, his voice low and raspy. "You missed the turn." Lisa frowned and checked the GPS. "It says the turn is a mile up." "No," he said firmly. "You missed it." Her stomach churned. The road was pitch black, no houses or cars in sight. "Okay," she said hesitantly, slowing the car. As she looked for a place to turn around, she noticed something else. The smell. A faint metallic scent filled the car, growing stronger by the second. It smelled like rust or blood. Her pulse quickened. She wanted to look back, but fear kept her eyes on the road. "What's that smell?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't answer. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A notification popped up on the screen. "Your passenger has canceled the ride." Lisa's heart stopped. She glanced in the mirror. The back seat was empty. The car swerved as she hit the brakes, pulling over to the side of the desolate road. She turned on the cabin light and looked back. No one was there. The seatbelt was neatly fastened, as if it had never been used. Panicking, she grabbed her phone and checked the app. There was no record of a ride request, no name, no destination. It was as if the trip had never been booked. Shaking, Lisa sped home, locking every door and window as soon as she got inside. She quit driving for the rideshare company the next day, but the experience haunted her. Months later, while watching the news, she froze. The headline read, "Serial killer caught after string of murders across rural Ohio." The mugshot on the screen was eerily familiar. It was the man from her back seat. The news revealed he had targeted drivers, luring them to isolated areas before killing them. But what truly sent chills down her spine was the detail about his capture. He had been dead for weeks by the time she picked up her silent passenger. To this day, Lisa refuses to drive at night, haunted by the memory of a ride that defied explanation. In the fall of 1997, a small town in Oregon was rocked by a tragedy. A 7-year-old boy named Danny Foster disappeared while playing at the local park. His mother, who had been watching him from a nearby bench, looked away for just a moment. When she turned back, he was gone. The search lasted weeks, but yielded nothing. Some claimed to hear faint cries near the woods bordering the park, while others swore they saw a shadowy figure lurking by the swings at dusk. The town was left with no answers, only grief. Years later, in 2018, a new family moved into the town. Claire and Adam Miller had 2 kids, Ellie, 8, and Max, 5. The family loved the peaceful vibe of the town, and Ellie, an adventurous and curious girl, quickly took to the old playground. One late afternoon, Claire brought Ellie and Max to the park while Adam stayed home. The kids ran off to play, their laughter filling the crisp autumn air. Claire sat on a bench, scrolling through her phone but glancing up every so often to keep an eye on them. The sun was setting when she noticed something odd. Ellie was standing by the swing set, not swinging, just staring into the woods at the edge of the park. Max was nowhere to be seen. "Ellie," Claire called, her voice tight with concern. "Where's your brother?" Ellie didn't respond. She took a few steps toward the woods, her movements slow and deliberate, as if in a trance. Panic surged through Claire as she ran to her daughter, grabbing her by the shoulders. "Ellie, what are you doing? Where's Max?" Ellie blinked, seeming to snap out of it. "He's playing with the boy," she said matter-of-factly. Claire's blood ran cold. "What boy?" Ellie pointed to the edge of the woods. "The boy in the red jacket. He said Max could come see his secret fort." Claire's heart dropped. She knew the story of Danny Foster. The boy had been wearing a red jacket the day he vanished. Without thinking, Claire bolted toward the woods, screaming Max's name. The trees loomed dark and menacing as she pushed through the underbrush, her breath ragged. Finally, she heard it, faint giggling, mixed with whispers. She followed the sound to a small clearing. There was Max, sitting cross-legged on the ground, talking animatedly to no one. "Max!" Claire yelled, grabbing him and pulling him to her chest. "What are you doing out here?" Max looked confused. "I was talking to Danny. He said I could stay with him. He's lonely." Claire froze. "What did you say?" Max frowned. "Danny. He's right there." He pointed behind her. Claire turned, her body trembling, but the clearing was empty. All she saw was the faint outline of a swing, rusted and ancient, hanging from an old oak tree. It creaked, swaying gently in the still air. She didn't wait to find out more. Carrying Max, she ran back to the car, grabbing Ellie on the way. That night, she told Adam what had happened, but he dismissed it as overactive imaginations. But Ellie and Max weren't the same after that. Ellie started drawing pictures of a boy in a red jacket, his face obscured by shadows. Max began talking in his sleep, mumbling about a secret fort and someone wanting to play forever. The family moved away 6 months later, leaving the town and its haunted playground behind. Locals say the whispers in the woods persist, and if you listen closely, you can still hear the creak of the old swing, waiting for its next visitor.